These are real buyers that will show up. We write letters for those. We're very specific in the letters that we write. So let's say it's Nick Baldwin. I'm going to write up the letter and it's going to say, hey, Mr. Seller, I've got a husband and a wife, Nick and Ann, and they're looking for this single family residence. It's in your neighborhood.
All right, folks. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. This is Nick Niehaus, Business Video School. We are going to be talking all about why video works, and I'm going to give you 4 easy strategies that you can implement using video in your business. So lots to go over today. There's a lot of content that we're going to be covering here that I think you're going to really enjoy. So, all right, looks like we are live streaming at this point, so we can go ahead and get the ball rolling. I do want to encourage you, ask questions as we go, right? We got the chat down there at the bottom. So if you want to put your questions down there as we're moving through today's presentation, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Let's get into it, okay? So before I start, I do want to kind of introduce myself. I know we only do these webinars sort of once a month at this point, so some of you may have not met me in the past. I'm Nick Niehaus. I'm the co-founder and head trainer of Business Video School, and we teach real estate agents specifically. About 95% of our agents are students, and we teach them how to use video in their businesses. So how to market with video, but also how to communicate with customers, how to convert their leads, how to communicate with their employees if they have them. Video really is a form of communication, and we specialize in teaching people how to use it. All right. So that's where we're going to start today. We're going to start out by talking a little bit about that fact that video is a expected and really essentially an inevitable, having trouble saying that word, inevitable form of human communication, right? So I want to talk about this for a few minutes before we get into it today. And obviously, if you're here and you've been to our webinars in the past, you know this webinar today really is an introduction, and it's a pretty thorough one at that. But the first thing I want you to understand is the most important. And if you had to leave 5 minutes into this presentation and all you understood was this point, you would probably be in a much better situation than you are right now. Here's the thing, all right? Every single form of human communication, so handwritten letters, phone calls, text messages, emails, social media posts, putting a letter in a bottle and throwing it in the ocean, right? Every single form of human communication has been developed and has come to be as an attempt to replace or simulate our original form of human communication, right? And this is really important to understand because when we first, humans have been around for several 100,000 years at this point. And one thing we know about our species is that something that distinguishes us from pretty much all other animals on this planet is the fact that we have the ability to talk to each other, right? We developed the spoken word, we developed language, and we have these face-to-face conversations all the time, right? Well, if you go back far enough, there is a point in human history where the only way that we could communicate with each other was face-to-face, right? Now, why is that important? Why are we talking about this first, right? Well, here's what you have to understand. When we have a face-to-face conversation, we are able to engage all of our senses, okay? So let's go through those really quickly, and you can sort of see the icons here below this very first overall graphic showing you those different senses, right? So when we go all the way back, we go hundreds of thousands of years in the past, and as humans, we're sitting there pre-civilization, and we're having a sort of grunt-based conversation where we're using very simple words. We have to remember that it's not just the words, right? So when we're having that kind of conversation, you can see the person. So not only can you listen to the words they're saying, but you can also watch their facial expressions. You can see their body language. You can watch the ways that they use their hands. And before we could talk to each other, we were probably already communicating to some degree by doing those things, right? By pointing, by smiling or frowning. There was already some communication happening there, right? So seeing the person is a big part of how we communicate. Hearing the person, right? That's the second sense that comes into play here, is also really important. Now, we can hear the words they use. And what words allow us to do is to be precise, right? By choosing words, all the words have different meanings. They all have specific meanings. And by using words, we're able to be as accurate as we possibly can. But the truth is, we can already communicate a lot through sound, even without the words, right? And that comes into play here too. So when you're talking to somebody face to face, sure, the words they're saying matter, but we're also listening to the tone of voice, right? We're reading the emotion. We're listening to the words that they're choosing to emphasize. There's a lot of nuance there that we're able to hear with our ears that goes beyond simply the words that that person is saying, right? Now, beyond that, technically, you can also engage the other three senses when you're in person, right? I'm going to argue those are less important, right? So you can smell the other person. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Sometimes it's not a good thing, right? You can touch them, which does mean you can shake their hand. You can give them a hug. I think that adds a little bit to that interaction, right? And then technically the fifth sense is taste, and you could hypothetically taste the other person, but I kind of hope you're not doing that when you're getting together in person with folks, right? So the big two, though, the two that we really have to pay attention to are seeing the person, being able to watch everything they're doing, and hearing them, right? And so since that point in time, 100,000 years ago or so, since that point in time, everything else we've developed has been an attempt to try to replicate that, right? Because if we got to a point where we can communicate with someone from a distance across, many, many miles or across time, right? So maybe I can do something today that they can consume tomorrow. Those are also steps in a new direction for human communication, which is what we got when we started to do the handwritten letter or the printed letter, right? Then eventually we developed phone calls and eventually emails and text messaging and social media. And obviously I don't have room for all the different forms of human communication that have evolved over the years. But here's where we have arrived. You are experiencing it right now, right? And that is video as a form of human communication. Well, video does not allow us to touch the person. We cannot smell the person and we cannot taste the person, right? However, we get the two senses that are the most important when it comes to communicating effectively, right? When it comes to fully understanding the person that you're trying to talk to, right? And so this is it. This is the first time in human history for tens of thousands of years that we have been able to have what feels a lot like a face-to-face conversation, right? Which gets you the visual of the person, their facial expressions, their body language, but also allows you to hear the words they're using and understand their tone of voice. This is the first time we've been able to do that, all right? And so what I want you to start thinking about here is that, yes, video is a form of marketing. Yes, you can dance on TikTok, you can build a YouTube channel, you can do all these things with video, and that's a great place to end up, but you're probably overcomplicating it by thinking of those things first. In fact, the first thing you should start to think about when it comes to video is, if this is a form of communication, where are the easiest, simplest first steps I could be taking to start using it, right? Because by replacing existing things like an email, a text, or a phone call with a video, I'm literally using a more impactful form of human communication, right? That's the thing I want you to understand and leave here with today, is that if I can use video to communicate, I am going to get better results automatically. And here's why, okay? So let's talk about some of the neuroscience for just a second here, right? Now, this is really interesting. Over the years, humans have continued to evolve, right? We're not getting too far into science today. We're starting there a little bit. And so what has happened is that many hundreds of thousands of years ago, this is a part of the brain that exists in other animals too. We developed this part of our brain called the Fusiform Gyrus. And what this area of your brain does is it recognizes objects, all right? Well, in particular, this subdivided area called the fusiform face area, which is a part of the gyrus, is dedicated just to recognizing human faces, all right? Now, why would that exist? Why do we need the ability to see another human face and remember to ourselves whether or not we've seen that face before, right? Well, instinctively speaking, it's because we need to be able to tell if we can trust that person, right? We need to be able to look at someone and say, yeah, I've seen this person a bunch of times before. I've spent time with them. I know who they are. That's Mark. I know him, right? That needs to be able to happen from an instinctual standpoint, so that when we're out there, walking around in the fields, foraging for food tens of thousands of years ago, we could look up, look across the field, realize, hey, that's somebody I know. Great. We're in a place where I'm safe. I can go have a conversation with them. I can approach them. I know what's going to happen, right? Or, hey, I don't know that person. I need to be careful. They are not part of my tribe, right? And so this part of your brain only turns on when you can see another human face, right? So where does that happen? Well, it happens when you have a face-to-face conversation, but it doesn't happen when you send a text. It doesn't happen when you send an email. It doesn't even happen when you make a phone call. The only other time it happens is really when you watch a video of that person, all right? So here's the mind-blowing part of this, and this is the part I want you to really understand today, is if I want someone to remember me, right? If I want them to feel like they know me, I need to communicate through video because a video feels like a face-to-face conversation, right? Now, here's the thing. You consciously know when you're watching a video, but this part of your brain, this fusiform gyrus, does not. It cannot tell the difference. Right. And so what that means is that if I can replace an email with a video of myself, if I can replace, an existing social media post that was just text with a video of myself, then the people that consume that form of communication are going to feel like they had a face-to-face conversation with me. And what does that ultimately do for your relationships? Right. So let me use a little bit of an analogy here to help you understand this. So this is Robin Williams, all right? Now, obviously, Robin Williams passed away a few years ago at this point, and it was a sad experience for a lot of Americans, right? I've surveyed quite a few people, and quite a few people miss Robin Williams. The reason I want to talk about this, though, is, and I'm sorry if it's triggering you, I don't mean that to be the case, but the reason I wanted to bring this up is that when Robin Williams passed away, I was sad. All right. I did not know Robin Williams. I was not his friend. I had never met him. I had never seen him in person, but I had watched his movies. And so I remember thinking at that moment when I found out that he had passed away, I remember thinking, man, that really sucks. I remember kind of sitting down for a minute and even sort of contemplating it a little bit. But I also remember thinking, why do I care? Why does this matter to me, right? I didn't have a personal relationship. So why do I feel kind of like I did when my grandpa passed away, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense. This is not someone I know. And what happened is over the years, I've come to understand why I felt that way. It's because I have what's called a parasocial relationship with Robin Williams. It's a one-sided relationship that is a natural experience, and it comes because of this part of our brain, okay? The reason these one-sided parasocial relationships form is that every time you see someone, your brain logs that, right? It says to yourself, hey, this is a person I'm seeing on a consistent basis. And take it a step further, when I was seeing Robin Williams through Jumanji and Mrs. Doubtfire and his classic films, I was even also laughing, right? I was having fun. I was enjoying myself. So not only is my brain saying, hey, you know this guy, this is somebody you can trust, this is a friend of yours, it's even taking it a step further and saying, and they're a funny friend of yours, right? This is something that makes you laugh, that helps you have fun. And so over time, my brain was starting to think Robin Williams was my friend, all right? That is a little bit crazy. And that we could go down a whole different path with this conversation. We could talk about, hey, what is that doing to our society? What is that doing to our children? The reality is, though, this is a powerful, powerful thing. And the thing you have to ask yourself is, what was it that allowed me to build that kind of relationship with this celebrity? He's not the only one, right? There are sports stars I have parasocial relationships with, music, musicians, all this kind of stuff, right? But they always tend to be people that I have seen on video, right? There are authors that I like that I would not recognize if I saw a picture of them, right? They don't have the same kind of space in my head as the people who I see on camera on a consistent basis. So people like Robin Williams have really ingrained themselves in my brain, and my brain thinks they're my friend, right? So this is where you have to be careful. There are agents in your market that are already starting to use this tool, right? Obviously, this is one that a lot of you probably would recognize, Ryan Serhant. I literally just saw a video of his, I think like 2 hours ago today, which I thought was kind of funny because he's in this presentation. And the thing is, Ryan Serhant used video to establish himself, right? He's known by people all over the country, but you don't have to necessarily worry about him. You have to worry about all the agents in your market that are starting to transition their communication with their customers to video, right? Like he did many years ago, because what those agents are accomplishing is that they are building meaningful, one-sided relationships with everyone who sees their content. And my question for you is, are you keeping your prospective customers from seeing their videos? Is there any way for you to do that? Maybe, right? I don't know. Maybe somebody has an answer to that, but I've never found one, right? I've never found a way to take everybody who's in my sphere of influence and make sure they never hear from any other real estate agents, right? So you have to ask yourself is what happens if the agents that I'm competing with start communicating through video, right? What if today, right now, your customers are getting your email newsletter right by their email newsletter, one of your competitors, because you got a member of your sphere who's in both of those audiences, right? Well, if they're both text, hey, it's a toss up, right? But what if your competitors start sending video? Now, every single time that person opens that content and consumes it, from your end, they got some information through text, which is probably somewhat, useful, right? And let's say they got the same information from the other agent, but it was a video. Their brain now feels like they just hung out with that person for a few minutes and that they provided them with the same value, right? If that keeps happening, what does it do to your relationship with that person? Unfortunately, it is going to have a negative effect, right? As that other relationship gets stronger. So that's the scary version of it, right? What I want to do now, though, is I want to give you the positive, proactive version of this, right? Which is, okay, let's say I understand this. Let's say I can see it happening. I can see more and more agents starting to use video on a regular basis. In fact, if you can think to yourself and you can remember a few of the agents who have started using video in your marketplace in the past 6 months, isn't that a testament to how strong video is, right? Isn't that a testament to reminding you of, hey, how impactful this is? How many agents in your market do you know started sending email newsletters for the first time recently? You wouldn't know that, right? It's not nearly as visible as video is. So let's start to transition here, because let's talk. What I want to focus on the rest of today's free training is I want to focus on what should you be doing, right? Here's what's currently happening. This is what I find is one of the main problems people are having in the world of real estate when it comes to video. Most agents are looking at what other agents are doing in their market, and they're trying to imitate it today. Here's why that can be risky. You might be going, well, duh, why wouldn't I want to imitate what I'm seeing is working, right? Well, here's the thing you have to remember. If you are copying somebody else who's been using video for years, you are not going to be as good as they are, right? And you're probably copying their most public version of video. You're probably trying to copy some of their most thoroughly produced videos, right? The stuff that performs well tends to be really good types of content, right? So that is a foolish way to approach this, because here's the thing. They have a lot of experience that you still need. This is a new set of skills. And when we try to copy what someone is doing today, after they've been learning that skill set for years, we are going to make our job much harder. We're going to fall flat on our face, and we are not going to want to get up and do it again, right? If the first time I go into the gym, if I've never lifted weights and I look at the biggest guy in the gym and I go, hey, I want to be like that. I'm going to go do what he's doing. And I try to pick up the weights he was just lifting. I am going to hurt myself, right? And you know what I'm not going to be able to do is go back in and work out again the next day or the next week or maybe the next month, right? And then when I do, if I try to do the same thing again, it's going to be super hard and I'm probably going to hurt myself again, right? You can see how that would make something take much longer and feel much more complicated, right? We know this when we go to the gym. We know if we go in the first day, hey, we're going to start with the lower weights. We're going to try to focus on our form. We're going to try to learn how to do the exercises before we worry at all about building any muscle, right? Do the same thing with video. Think about what is the simplest, most impactful, most immediate form of this that I can possibly implement, right? Start simple. Start with the easiest thing you can do and build momentum. I can guarantee you that the agents that are starting with the easiest forms of video today, 6 months from now, are going to be way out in front of the agents who are trying to copy the most elaborate forms of video right now. They're going to be on their third or fourth video ever 6 months from now, still trying to figure out how to edit, maybe never having posted anything. And the agents that start on the easy end of the spectrum are going to be hundreds of videos in. They're going to be comfortable on camera. They're going to be producing revenue as a result of their video efforts, and things are going to be looking really good for them because they approached this the right way. All right. So let's get into it. We're going to next give you all 4 of these strategies and the order in which you should implement them. All right. Here's strategy number 1. Strategy number 1 is one-to-one video messages. All right. You do not need to do anything more complicated to get started. So if you've already started making more complicated video, if it's at all frustrating, challenging, confusing, any of those sorts of things, you should stop and come back to this step. All right. If you are doing that and you've already gotten used to it, you can continue moving in that direction, but you should still add this step. And here's why. This is the most impactful form of video we have ever found. That's crazy to me, right? This is also the easiest form of video to implement. How often does that happen in business, right? How often do we say, hey, I want to do the easiest version of this, and then it also tends to be the one that gets us the best ROI, right? That's not very common. That is usually not the case, right? Well, here's the thing. This is the case, and it may not be forever, because once everybody starts doing this, it may lose its effectiveness. But in the short term, there is nothing better than one-to-one video messages in terms of the responses and the return on your investment, right? I cannot believe some of this stuff. We had a student the other day who got a $3+ million listing because she had sent someone a happy birthday video message a few weeks earlier. All right. It is crazy the way this stuff works. So here's what we're going to do. We got to remember, first, we're trying to start with the easiest version because we're trying to learn, right? So we got to ask ourselves, how do I get started with the thing that requires the least complexity? And when you're making a video for just one other person, it does not need to be elaborate, right? It does not need to be edited. It should not be too polished. If you stumble over a word or two, that is fine. That's normal, right? Think about this a little bit as like leaving a voicemail for somebody, right? When you call to leave a voicemail, I mean, if it's a really super important call, maybe you think a little bit about what you're going to say word for word ahead of time, but you probably just call them up, leave the message. And if you stumble over a word or two, you move on, right? It's done. That's how we're looking at these messages too. So you don't want to do anything that is remotely complicated. It does not need to be polished. It does not need to be fancy. All right. So what you're going to do to send these messages, you're going to use just a phone. You're going to hold your phone up, right at about eye level. You're going to focus on the camera and you're going to record it once and get it sent. All right. That is it. You just got to record it once and get it sent. Now, if you want to rewatch it once or twice, okay, you can do that sort of stuff, but I really encourage you not to overthink it. And here's what I want you to start with is happy birthday video messages. That's it. Now, what does that look like? It looks like saying happy birthday and then being done. All right. It does not have to look like anything. It does not have to be, you don't have to have props in it. You don't need to be in a certain situation. You just hold your phone up, you look into the camera, and you say, hey, I saw it was your birthday. I'm really excited for you. I hope you have an absolutely awesome day. Happy birthday. All right. That's about 6, maybe 8 seconds long. And you can send it through Facebook Messenger. In fact, you can go to the notifications tab on Facebook, click on the magnifier glass, the little search icon, search for the word birthdays. It'll show you a list of everybody's birthday. Next to each name is a messenger icon. You click on that, you open the camera in the messenger, and you hold the record button down and you talk to the camera, right? It's not hard. These are not, there's nothing to it. You could do this every morning with your morning coffee for 5 minutes and say happy birthday to 5, 10, maybe even 15 different people. And think about how much top of mind awareness you're going to generate. How many birthday video messages do you think people get today? If you're like me, maybe you get a handful. I certainly did this year, right? But I work in this industry. So most people maybe get one, maybe a couple. They remember this stuff for a long time. And this is what I'm talking about. Another 5, 10 years, this stuff is going to be everyday behavior. Video messaging, video communication, it's only growing, right? Because people like it. It's a better way to talk to each other in most situations. So they want it, they're expecting it, but there's just simply a lot of things people haven't thought to try yet. So when you're one of the first to send happy birthday videos, you are going to infiltrate their brain, right? They're going to remember you. They're going to think about you for weeks and weeks to come. And guess what? A few months later, when it pops up that they have to move and they go, man, who are the agents I know? There's a good chance you're going to be one of the people that pops into their head because of that mind share, right? Because you're in their brain and they're thinking about you. So that's where you start. And you do that as long as you have to. If you just do happy birthday video messages, you will get a ton of business as a result because you will be in someone's head. You'll be in all of their heads, right? They're going to think of you when the time comes. Don't do anything else until you are comfortable and confident with video when you're doing birthday video. That's it. You could just do these for 6 months, 12 months, maybe a couple years. And the amount of business you'll get as a result will be bigger than almost anything else you can do, right? Now, you don't have to wait that long. As soon as you are ready, as soon as you start to feel a little more confident on camera, you can get out there and start trying some new things, right? So try to wish people congratulations on their new job, say happy anniversary. Somebody just had a baby, they went on a cool trip, anything you would comment on Facebook is also fair game for sending someone a video message, right? So think of other opportunities and again, start to push yourself. Once you have those basic skills, you want to always be pushing yourself just a little bit to improve on them, right? So think of that as increasing your weight as you go, right? Now that you've got the form down, now that you know how to make eye contact with a camera and smile and come across as friendly in a video, now try something a little bit more complicated, right? So eventually you can build your way up to promotional videos. And now these are video messages that can be sent to just a single person. Like you can see in the right-hand side of the screen, that's me waving to the camera, sending a message to somebody named Susan, all right? I used Vidyard to send that message. And what that tool, as well as a lot of other tools such as BombBomb will do is they'll take your video and they'll actually take the first 3 seconds of the video, turn it into a preview, a little preview GIF that plays over and over again without any sound. So when they get that email or that text message, they see me waving with their name written on a whiteboard in my hand that I'm holding up, and it makes it a lot more likely they're going to click on that, right? So that's a great way to get somebody's attention when you're sending a message, especially if it is going to be a promotional video message, right? So as you get better at this, as you get more used to sending video messages, then you can start to add more complex type of messages, right? Send client transaction updates. This is a big one. I mean, this is one that I cannot believe more agents have not already made this transition. And I'll be honest, it becomes a little bit of a selfishness, right? It becomes a little bit of, well, I'm uncomfortable, I'm a little bit nervous, so I'm not going to provide as high of a level of customer service to my clients. That's a real shame, right? Because there's no pressure here. Nobody's going to judge you from sending them a 2-minute video that updates them on their transaction. They're not going to look at your hair or your lighting or worry about the words you stumbled over, right? But what they are going to do is they're going to appreciate that they can understand it better. We understand more information, especially emotional information, through video than other forms of communication. So especially in a transaction, right? There could be positive or negative emotion. There's emotion in a lot of steps of the real estate transaction. Let's send a video message. Let's help that person understand the emotion we're trying to portray. If it's a bad news, let's soften the blow. If it's a good news, let's be excited with them, right? And that's going to resonate. That's the kind of thing people tell their family and friends about. That's the kind of experience that wows them to the extent where they go, hey, I need to connect you to my friend who's thinking about moving too, right? So look at other opportunities. Look for other places where you can start to communicate with one-to-one video messages and keep stacking on top of what you're doing. Do not stop the previous types of messages, just start new ones. And what you're going to find is over time, this will start to replace a lot of your current communication, and the results, the impact, the way people talk to you is going to also change as a result, which I think is pretty cool, right? Okay, so let's talk about a couple quick case studies because I do think it's helpful to get an idea of where this comes into play. First case study is Carla. Carla sent 75 personalized video text messages, and she made one video as a promotional video message. She basically asked people if they were thinking about selling their house, and she sent this to 75 people. It took her 2 hours to customize each text message. The results of this is that she ended up doing 6 listing appointments. 4 of those people were nurtures. They wanted to list, but they weren't ready to move quite yet. And then 2 of them signed up on the spot to sell their house with her. She made about $20,000 in commission off of that. In addition, she also had about 30 people respond to her text saying, hey, I'm not thinking about moving, but I am going to ask my family and friends if they are to see if I can find somebody for you, which I think is a pretty positive response to a promotional message, right? So it just goes to show the impact, the amount of results you can get from simple video messages, right? I use this in my personal life all the time. And I think that's a great place to start with it. I got engaged this past year. It's been over a year now since I got engaged, getting married here in a couple months. And when I did, I recorded a video with my fiance, Vanessa, that we sent to my entire friend and family network. And they were able to feel like they were part of the experience. They were all able to see the ring. They're all able to basically be a part of it. And I didn't have to worry about offending anybody by calling them after I had called somebody else. And I got a few comments from people about that as a potential problem. So I was like, hey, you know what? We're avoiding it altogether with the video message, right? So there's just so many places you can use this that are not dancing on TikTok, that are not building a complicated YouTube channel, all right? Those are great things if you want to do them, if you're ready there for them. But there are too many gurus out here saying, hey, you got to start with a YouTube channel. Hey, you got to build a TikTok channel. And they're not realizing how much opportunity there is with much, much simpler forms of video, right? Now, there are a lot of benefits here. This will eventually save you time. That's not one that I talk much about, but it's a lot easier for me to hold my phone up and talk to the camera for 30 seconds or a couple minutes than it is to think out a well-written 3 or 4 paragraph email, right? So this will save you time. It's going to give you a ton of practice, and it's ultimately going to very much improve the relationships you have with your customers, right? So do not skip this step. I know it is tempting to get out there and start making things for a public-facing audience to try to start going viral, but there are too many opportunities. There's too much low-hanging fruit here to skip over video messaging, right? It's the best place to start by far. Now, as you're getting started, you may have some questions about how do I make myself look or sound better in these videos? I want to make sure, that I'm performing at my best possible level. Well, I do want to emphasize when you're sending one-to-one video messages, you don't have to worry about that much, right? People really are not going to think much about how you look or sound. They're just going to try to understand what it was you were saying. But if you do want to just be a little bit careful about this, here's what we recommend. First thing with lighting is it all just comes down to the direction the light is shining, right? So if you are sitting somewhere where the light is shining toward your face, you are going to look your best, right? The other way to think about that is the camera and the light should be about in the same place, right? So if the camera's over there, the light should be somewhere in this general direction, shining toward me, right? Here's where it should not be. It should not be above me shining down. It should not be below me shining up. It should not be on either side shining in. And it should definitely not be behind me shining out, or it's going to shine straight into the camera, right? Now, this first picture is what it looks like when the light is above you. That's me standing underneath a ceiling fan, which is sort of your typical light sticking out of it, right? It's not a very flattering look. You can see all the shadows that creates on my face. Well, the second picture there, I'm literally standing in front of a window on a cloudy day with all the lights in the room turned off. So that is the easiest form of light, right? Whenever you can get in front of a big window, especially on a cloudy day, which is nice, ambient, soft light, that is going to help you look your best, right? If you don't have a window, if you don't have that kind of light, just make sure the light is in front of you, not above you, right? In a pinch, if you can't do any of those things, just, think about how people take selfie pictures, right? A lot of times we're holding our camera up a little bit when we take a selfie. And that's because, again, often of the light and where it's coming from, right? So maybe if you're going to record a video message, just go up a little bit, try to be far enough back from the light on the ceiling so it's still sort of shining toward your face as much as possible. And that'll help you look your best, right? So it's worth doing a little bit of research to see how you can adjust that. On the other side is audio. Audio is super important. In fact, audio is more important than lighting because if you don't get your audio right, it can actually be kind of hard to understand you. And if you have that problem, people will stop watching your videos sooner than if your lighting is off. It actually bothers folks more than the lighting does, all right? So what can we do to make sure our audio is nice and clear? Well, there's a couple of simple tips, right? So first of all, don't be too far from your recording device. If you're within about 5 feet of your recording device, you should be good. You're going to get nice and clean audio. But if you ever have a problem where you can't feel like you can't hear yourself very well, it may simply be your distance, right? Think about a concert or a recording artist, right? They tend to have the microphone pretty much directly in their mouth. In fact, when I'm recording for these, my microphone is just here, right out of sight of the video camera, but it's really only about 10 inches from my mouth, and that maximizes the audio that we're able to pick up, right? Now, also consider which room you're in. Are you in a room that is that has low background noise. I mean, this would be pretty obvious, but there are oftentimes noises in the background that we sort of we get used to, right? So we don't hear them as much. We're not paying attention to them. So think, consciously a little bit about, hey, what kind of sound do I hear? Are there people talking? Is there an AC running? Is there some sort of clicking sound in the background? A big pet peeve of mine is people recording videos outside on busy streets, right next to busy streets. They have all this car traffic sound. And they don't think about it, right? So just a few things to really kind of consider to make sure your video audio comes through nice and cleanly, all right? All right, now let's move on. We're going to move on to the next step. Now, before we do that, I do want to mention this, which is if the only kind of video you ever use is one-to-one video messaging, you're probably fine. That is probably about the only kind of video you ever have to use. And it is just that impactful, right? If you think about this as what is my easiest win? Well, think about it. If I start sending video messages instead of the other kinds of communication I'm sharing, I am going to be impacting people in a much more meaningful way. So I don't necessarily have to start doing stuff publicly, because as long as my sphere is seeing me, being reminded of me as a person on a consistent basis, which again, video is the best way to do, I don't have to necessarily get in front of a whole bunch of new people. However, if I want to continue to move down this path, if I do want to continue using video, I'm going to recommend that you move to this as strategy number 2. Now, that does not mean I stop doing video messages. It means that I add this to the video messages that I'm already doing, all right? And that is strategy number 2 becomes increasing my business efficiency with video, right? So what does that mean? Well, it basically means anything that I can record in advance to answer questions or provide information that someone is going to need to know, right? So think about it this way. What are the most frequently asked questions? What are the things that come up with every single customer? What are the kinds of questions about your business you get from referral partners, right? Maybe maybe you work with a lot of contractors and there's certain requirements that you have for the contractor partners, right? That could be a video. Anything that you have to say more than once over the course of maybe a year could and probably should be a video, all right? Now, what does that do for you? Well, first of all, you're going to explain whatever it is you're talking about at the best level you possibly can. So if you're answering a frequently asked question, right? So maybe you work with a lot of buyers and they're always asking you how to get pre-approved for a loan, or what are the first few steps to getting a loan, or whatever it might be, right? There's obviously a lot of examples of this stuff. Well, what I can do is if I sit down and I think about the best possible answer to that question, I write down some bullet points and I deliver my best answer I possibly can. Now, every single person I work with gets the best answer and explanation to that question I can possibly give, right? Think about how much more educated they're going to be. There's not going to be anybody that got the quick last second version when you're on the phone in the middle of another showing, right? They're going to get this stuff very thoroughly. So now what I can do is as a new customer comes in, or maybe even better, as a new lead comes in before they're even a customer, now they can start seeing all these FAQ videos. They can see my common process videos. They can see me explaining what the next steps in the transaction are going to look like. And they're going to be getting to know me through that content. So if I put this stuff in front of them before they're even a client, but especially once they are a client, they are going to be substantially easier to work with. And they're also going to be much more likely to work with you, right? So again, imagine somebody comes to several real estate agents' websites, or they sign up on, one of these lead gen sites that sells the lead to multiple people. Well, if you get that contact information and the first thing that person sees from you is a series of videos, then when you try to call them the next day or a few days later, they're going to know who you are. They will not know who your competitors are, right? Because they will not have had that same kind of experience with them, at least in the short term, but this will become more common, right? So that's just so many examples of what you can do. Like, let's talk about how to make these for just a second, all right? This is the first point where I do think a little bit of editing can go a long way, right? So on the filming side, I do recommend you have at the very least an overview, an outline, a little bit of detail about what you're going to say. If you want to go the full scripted route, get a tool called Big View, BIGVU. It's a teleprompter app that you can put your script into and simply read back into your camera. Makes it much, much easier for you. And I do also recommend, think about which way you're going to shoot these. Are they going to be vertical because you're going to text them to a lot of people, or should they be horizontal? Maybe you're going to send them through email, or you're going to put them on YouTube and use them there, right? So you do want to think about that part when you're recording as well. On the other side is editing, right? So what happens when I get to the videos are produced? What do I do to make them look better? Here's all I want to say on that, right? You can add music, you can add graphics, you can do all kinds of editing, right? I would keep it simple like anything else, right? But here's the thing I really want to point out is you probably want to pay an editor to do this for you, unless the idea of becoming a part-time videographer sounds like a fun hobby, all right? That's it. So if it doesn't sound like a fun hobby to be a part-time videographer, pay someone to do it, okay? If it does sound like fun, then go for it, right? You might really find an additional new passion here. But in my case, I run a video production business, right? But I still pay somebody to edit a lot of my videos because otherwise it just simply wouldn't get done in time, right? So from an efficiency standpoint, it can make a lot of sense to just do this stuff yourself. To pay someone to do it so that you can focus on other things in your business. And that way it gets done and it gets posted and it gets out the door instead of sitting on your computer for months and never getting used, right? So just a couple of quick ideas there. So now this is strategy number 2, right? What are some of the benefits here? Well, this is the primary step where we're going to start saving time in our business, right? You might be shocked by how much time you can save by better educating your customers, your employees, and your referral partners through video. Now, instead of having to explain things for the first time, you're answering follow-up questions, right? You're helping them take those additional next steps. They're coming in, not having to be re-educated about some of the myths that they may be believed about the real estate industry, right? Because they actually know what is going on. They understand it because they've already learned it from you, right? It's going to increase how much respect your business has in the community. This is the kind of stuff people tell their family and friends about, right? This is the kind of stuff that they brag to their neighbor about because they're having such a positive experience. And then, like I said, this can also make a bunch of content you can use for marketing purposes. You can use it to convert leads. You can post it to social media. You can do all kinds of good stuff with it, right? So I think this is a very smart strategy to implement. Number 2, because at this point, you're already sending video messages to people that are generating business for you, right? So I do want to give you one more set of tips about how to make a good video, right? This slide is all about being compelling on camera, being confident on camera. Some of these are going to be somewhat sort of obvious, but that doesn't mean that they're not fair points to make, right? The first is to plan and practice. Now, you may think that you need to plan and practice because you're not going to know what to say. It's actually the other way around for most people. Most people need to plan and practice because they're going to say too much unless they know exactly what it is they're trying to say, right? And I will tell you right now, I'd much rather watch a video that was missing something but was still short than to watch a video that had way too much information in it. In fact, that can almost create more of a problem than something that's missing a piece because you're going to overwhelm the viewer, right? So do plan, write out an outline at the very least. If it's not going to be a script, at least have it outlined and know what the heck you're talking about. It's going to allow you to get through the content, get the main points you needed to cover done, and then be finished, right? These videos, especially your frequently asked question videos, don't need to be more than maybe most of them 60 seconds, right? If it's a really complicated question, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, but anything longer than that, you're going to have a lot of trouble getting people to actually watch, okay? Start and end with a smile. Now, this one, again, is pretty obvious, but you would be surprised how easy it is to mess up, especially at the end of your video. You just got it done. You're a little bit relieved. Your face falls back to your natural expression. And if you're like me, that is not necessarily a smile. And so it can be a little bit jarring. You looked like you were having a good time until the very end, which can be kind of confusing if you're watching a video. Same thing goes for the beginning. Make sure you're smiling when the video starts, right? Now, these last two, voice inflection and body language, here's the thing. Everybody has their own form of this stuff, right? Some of you use your hands a lot. Some of you hardly do. Some of you are very expressive. Some of you are more monotone. Here's what I want you to understand, though, is that the camera will cut down on your enthusiasm. So no matter what level it is that you normally have when you're having a face-to-face conversation, it is highly recommended that you practice this and work on your enthusiasm. So what I recommend is record a short video, 1 sentence or so, and record it 3 times. And each time, try to double your enthusiasm. Try to be more over the top. Try to be more expressive. Use your hands that much more, etc. And then watch them back and see which one you like. You're probably going to find that you have to emphasize, you have to sort of deliver more energy than you're expecting, but that will produce a really really, really nice video as a result. So it's definitely a little exercise worth doing, and then trying to stick to whichever those levels it is you determine to be the best. Okay. All right, cool. So we are down to our last two strategies. Before we make that transition, I did want to just make a quick mention here of our free video mini course. Some of you maybe have already gotten signed up for this because we do talk about it in a lot of our webinars, but I do want to give you an opportunity to get access to the mini course, right? Now, what is this? Well, what we did is we put together some of our absolute best video lessons, which are 1 to oftentimes 3-minute long videos that will teach you one very specific video topic. So things like what to talk about in your content, things like what kind of equipment should you consider buying, things like how to go live on social media in an effective way. I mean, all that kinds of good stuff, right? It's too much stuff to cover during these presentations. So what we did is we put together 14 emails with one video each that you get delivered one day at a time over 2 weeks. All right. So if you are curious about video, you're looking to get better at it, you're looking to start using it more in your business, take your phone out and scan this really quickly. It's very easy to do. You just go ahead and open up the camera app on your phone, point it at the QR code. It'll pop up with the URL. You scan it, and you're good to go, right? So I'll give that just a couple more seconds if you do want to get access to it. Again, if you are getting started with video, I highly recommend you get registered for that because it will give you all kinds of very valuable tips and tricks, all right? And then before I click next, I also want to mention we are holding a Memorial Day sale, which ends today. So this is the last day for it. I know it's kind of sudden, but that link is also in the chat. If you are curious about getting involved in Business Video School, that link is there. Go ahead and check it out before the webinar gets wrapped up. All right. Now, coming into the end here, I'm going to finish out with the last two strategies that we recommend. These are pretty straightforward, or at least this one is, right? And so strategy number 3 at this point is to build a video marketing funnel, right? Very simple point sort of approach here. So what we do is we first create an awareness video, which is helping people find out about us for the first time. My favorite version of that is a community-focused video. Then we have consideration, which is helping them understand who we are, what we do as a business, start to give them some information on what it might be like to work with us. I think customer testimonials are great at that stage because somebody else talking about how great you are is better than you talking about how great you are, right? And then finally, we have conversion, which is basically just inviting that person to take the next step, whatever that next step might be. And that's obviously up to you. So what do you want them to do? Do you want to set up a sales conversation? Do you want them to come to a free event? Do you want them to attend a webinar? And there's just so many different next steps that they could take. You just have to decide what it is you want them to do. And that's it. Once those 3 videos are created, you set them up as a series of ads on social media, either Facebook or YouTube are 2 of my favorite places to do it. You can also do it on Instagram, right? What you do, though, is you show them in that order. So you show them awareness. Then once they've watched that, you show them consideration and then conversion. What that does, it gives them a chance to get to know you, decide that they like you. And then when they see that conversion ad, they're more likely to take action, all right? Obviously, this is where paying for some professional help is recommended. I would highly recommend you work with a professional videographer to make these videos because they'll be just that much more impactful, that much better. And then you may also want to run paid ads or think about an email marketing automation to deliver those videos to the right people, right? So there's lots of different ways to go about it. But the basic concept is to create a series of 3 videos that are then going to be shown in that order, right? Now, if we do all these 3, right? We got these 3. Oh, I skipped ahead a slide there. So we do all these 3. We're going to be at a point where we have a pretty robust marketing system in place, right? At this point, we have an automated funnel. It's generating leads into our business. Once those people hit our business, once they're in our database, they're going to start receiving our FAQ videos. They're going to start getting video messages. They are going to be substantially more likely to convert because they already know you. That is the big power of video, right? That's the difference maker. So not only are you going to do more business, but you're going to have better, stronger, more meaningful relationships with your customers, right? So here's my question for you. If you get to this point, you got all those video messages happening, you got a bunch of efficiency in your business because you've replaced yourself with video essentially, and you have a marketing funnel that's consistently attracting new customers. What else do you need, right? I mean, we have a 4 strategy, but could you stop here and this would be enough? Yeah, you certainly could. And I think this is what a lot of agents right now need to understand is we're going to talk at the last couple minutes here about the strategy number 4, which obviously at this point is going to be the social media stuff. But why are we starting there? Why are so many agents starting with the most complicated form of video when all these other things are not yet in place, right? If we do it in the right order, we're much more likely to have success, and we maybe don't need to do the social media stuff, right? So let's talk about that to wrap things up. This is the 4th and final strategy, and that is to make social media video content, right? So why am I saying, though, that this might not be necessary? Well, here's the thing. When it comes to social media, there's 2 things we're essentially doing, right? Number 1, we're staying top of mind with people we already know. So it is a good idea from that standpoint to be posting consistently to social media, because it's just another chance to put ourselves in front of our database, right? But we can't control who sees it. That's the real weakness of social media, is that I can post something and all my friends might see it, plus a bunch of strangers, or nobody might see it. And I can't control that, right? So I'd rather have things I can control in place first. And then I like to think of social media as this is a way to get in front of a larger audience. Hypothetically, though, theoretically, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? In fact, if I'm going to do social media, I usually pay to run ads because it's much more dependable, right? It's a lot more predictable and reliable. So at this point, though, what I'd recommend is this. If you get to this point, all your other strategies are in place, here's what I would do. I would make social media content about your community, right? Here is why. I am going to be getting in front of new people and the people in my sphere. If I make content about my community, the people in my sphere of influence are going to appreciate it, right? They live in my community. They're going to appreciate that I'm highlighting interesting things going on in town. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get in front of new people who also care about those things. If I don't focus on my community and I instead, for instance, make content about real estate in general, anybody could find that interesting, right? Which is actually not good for what you're trying to do. What you should be trying to do on social media is build a hyper local following. You should be trying to become local famous, right? Not nationally famous. Most of those people cannot hire you because you have a local business, right? So focus on the community. Let me give you a couple quick examples. These are 2 videos I created here on the right-hand side. This is me in an antique shop. This was a 6-second story I posted where I'm holding up a little antique vase. That's it, right? I had people respond to that, talking about having been to the store or talking about how much they loved antique shopping, right? Now, obviously, the ones that saw the store, that draws in people from my community, right? This one's maybe an even more pointed example. This was an event in, I believe, Collinsville, Illinois. It was called Italian Fest. And we went out, a couple friends, got some shots of the food, shots of us walking around. And I made a little reel for Instagram. Took me, 10 minutes or so to put it together, but it was otherwise nothing fancy, no special access or anything like that. And what's beautiful about that is, sure, somebody from another place could see that and go, oh, cool, a little festival. You're going to get some of that. You can't prevent that. But the people that saw that were from Collinsville or from my area were like, oh yeah, I know all about the Italian Fest. That's always a lot of fun. I'm planning on going next year, whatever it might be, right? When we see things we already care about, some of that affection, some of that consideration transfers to the person who shared that content, especially if they're in it, right? So if I'm in that content, which, I only featured myself in a little bit of that video, obviously my fiance's in more of it than I am, but that basically tells the person who's seeing it, I can trust this person. They're part of my community. They care about the same things that I do, right? Very, very powerful idea. So definitely think about using your community in your videos wherever you can, all right? All right, so we are here at the end. We are going to be hopping off in just a second, but to sum all this back up, we want to do these things in this order. You want to start with one-to-one video messages. Once that is up and running, you want to move on to building efficiency in your video and your business with video. Then you want to build your video marketing funnel. And only when those things are all up and running do you need to start thinking about TikTok or YouTube or social media, right? And at that point, then focus on your community, draw new people into your database, and use all your existing video efforts to convert them, all right? All right, that's all I got for you today. I do want to remind you, if you do want to get that mini course, scan this QR code. We're going to be ending things here in just a couple more seconds, so make sure you get access to this. And then another reminder, check out the chat. That Memorial Day sale is going on until midnight tonight. So if you're looking for help with video, if you need somebody to be there to support you and hold you accountable and teach you all of these skills, we would love to work with you, right? So I'm not going to give you a tour or a pitch or anything like that right now, but there's plenty of information on that site. So check out the chat and grab that link to our Memorial Day sale if you would like to learn more about the school, okay? I will be happy to answer any questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I am going to hop off if I don't see any of those. So I'll give you just a few more seconds to throw any questions that you might have into the chat. But otherwise, I do want to thank you all for being here today. Again, I'm Nick Niehaus with Business Video School. We try to do at least one of these webinars per month inside of LabCoatAgents. And so we appreciate everybody being here. So thanks so much for tuning in. I will talk to you next time. See you then.